had had the best year in terms of revenue and fulfillment. And at the same time, I had this feeling of like, I'm not exactly sure how I made it happen. And so I was starting to wonder, how long can I keep this up? It just felt like luck rather than something I could concretely plan and influence.
Welcome to the Smart Gets Paid podcast with me, Leah Niederthal. I help women land higher paying clients in their independent consulting businesses, but I've never been a salesperson. My background is in corporate marketing, and when I started my first consulting business, I learned pretty quickly that it's about 1,000 times harder to sell your own stuff than it is to sell someone else's. So I taught myself how to do it, and I created the sales approach that I now share with my clients so they can feel more comfortable in the sales process, get more of the right clients, and get paid way more for every client contract. So whether your client contracts are $5,000, $100,000, or more, if you want to work with more of the clients you love, do more of the work you love, and get paid more than you ever thought you could, then you're in the right place. Let's do it together. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to rate, review, and share. Hey there, Leah here, and thanks for tuning in. I hope wherever you are right now, wherever you're listening to this, I hope you're having a great week, making some good progress in your business, and taking some time for you. So imagine this. You've just had your best year ever, your biggest revenue year, and the work felt meaningful. You should be celebrating, right? But instead, you're lying awake wondering, how did I actually make that happen? Was it just luck? And more importantly, how would I do that again? That's the reality for a lot of women consultants out there. And it was the reality for the woman I'm talking to today. Because today I'm talking to Stephanie Lowe, who's a coach and facilitator for social impact leaders. And when she came into my orbit about 1.5 years ago, she'd come off this really great year, but she was caught in this cycle of anxiety because every single month, she had no idea how much money she was going to make that month until like literally the last 2 weeks of the month. She was sort of holding her breath all the time. And to make her numbers, since she was never quite sure what any month was going to look like, she ended up having to take on tons of small projects just to make the numbers work. I mean, we're talking like 40 to 50 contracts a year. And even when she did okay, it felt like luck. It didn't feel like something she could plan or influence. Frankly, her success didn't feel solid. It felt fragile. So fast forward to today, and Stephanie's booked several months out with 3 to 4 months of savings in the bank. She has a cushion. But more than that, she's not holding her breath anymore, and she can actually see into the future and plan. She knows how she did it, and she knows that she can keep it going. So what changed? That's what we're going to talk about today. So take a listen to my conversation with Stephanie Lowe, and at the end, I'll come back and share a lesson that you can apply to your business. And then hopefully someday soon, you'll partner with us to help you build your consulting business, and you'll come back on the podcast and share your story. Enjoy.
All right. Stephanie, I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Leah. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Well, so let's start at the beginning. Why don't you tell the good people who you are and what you do?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I am Stephanie Lowe. I'm based in Chicago, and I am a coach and facilitator for social impact leaders and teams.
Amazing. How long have you been doing that work?
Gosh, officially as a business, 4 years, but I've really been doing like the heart of what I do. I've been doing for 15 to 20 years now.
When you say the heart of what you do, I mean, what were you doing before this?
So I was a classroom teacher for 3 years, and then I joined Teach for America staff, and my work there was leadership development. So I worked initially with teachers, but less on pedagogy and more on their identity development and their values, and really thinking about how they show up as leaders with their students and colleagues and families they work with. And then I later got to do that with increasingly more just tenured staffs, eventually working with executive directors and program directors across the country.
That's awesome. I'm sort of stuck on that you were a classroom teacher, which I feel like the hardest job, but I have to know which is harder, being a classroom teacher or running your own business.
Oh gosh, they're hard in different ways. It's definitely hard being a teacher. The level of responsibility I felt every day was very, very intense. And every micro moment. Whereas I guess as a business owner, you have moments to zoom out and not every moment feels so stressful, even though overall it can be stressful for sure.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So, Stephanie, let's sort of talk about the beginning of our journey together. What was going on when you came into my orbit or, when we started working together? I mean, you reached out to us for a reason. What were the reasons?
Yeah. So a little over a year ago, year and a half ago, I had had the best year in terms of revenue and fulfillment. And at the same time, I had this feeling of like, I'm not exactly sure how I made it happen. And so I was starting to wonder, how long can I keep this up if I can't really demystify what's happening? And if, what I'm doing will continue to bring success. And then also I was starting to notice some of those initial clients that I had gotten when I started my business were starting to go through some layoffs and budget cuts. And I didn't have a specific plan for growing my network larger and building a pipeline. And then the couple of months prior, there was a really big dip in business to the point where I think that year when I was first at Academy, I had a certain threshold that I wanted to make every month. And it wasn't until maybe the last 2 weeks of every month that I was securing that amount in month. And so that was also keeping me in a cycle of taking a lot of smaller gigs. I had like 40 to 45 contracts a year. They're
Hmm.
very small amounts. And I was really trying to figure out a way to get out of that cycle and have maybe half of that and maybe 5 to 8 that were definitely 5-figure contracts. And
Like 40 to 50 is so
it's so,
much.
I mean, just the time in the sales process and then writing a contract and all my work is it's pretty tailored. So every contract looks different.
Yeah.
I was just spending so much time and invoicing even just like, and starting your relation. Like it's just, yeah, the amount of time, it just didn't feel sustainable. It was a little hard for me to zoom out and figure out how do I create a business that is more sustainable and also have these larger projects that are more fulfilling for me and also have more impact for my clients.
Yeah. I'm just, thinking about how, every month you didn't know where you were going to be that month, right? Like, were you going to make it or not make it? Or how did that feel? How did that sort of play out? You mentioned the small projects, but like, that's probably a symptom of, something.
Yeah, looking back, I can really see a little bit of like a chicken and egg, like a self reinforcing cycle there. I mean, it didn't feel great. On one hand, I feel like I learned a lot of like grew a lot in the inner like the mental game of not catastrophizing every month. But on the other hand, it was like I was like holding my breath, right? Like even when I would get ahead a little, I felt like I was holding my breath and I couldn't fully relax. I couldn't explain what was happening. It just felt like luck rather than something I could concretely plan and influence.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard something similar from my dad, of all people. I mean, I think I started hearing this when I was like a teenager. He said something like, every month I do well. He was in private practice, right? Every month I do well, but on the first of the month I'm poor. And I'm sure I didn't realize it at the time, like what that truly meant. But now, as a grown up with like real bills and real responsibilities, I can only imagine, what that might have felt like for him. And I see how it feels for a lot of women.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up your dad because my parents were small business owners too, my whole life, and money was such a topic growing up. And I remember stressful times when they were taking on a lot of risk and working really hard. And in fact, my dad, while he would joke sometimes that I could take over the family business, he would level with me and say, Stephanie, get a job working for a big company with benefits and like you don't have to worry about the ups and downs. And that really stuck with me.
And you're like, okay, fine,
Here I am.
great. Yeah, here you are, not following his guidance at all.
He's very happy for me. But yeah, it definitely impacted me. Yeah, taking a while to take the leap. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned your parents, and I think some of the things that you and I have talked about are around money and sort of the cultural conversation around money in your house. Was there anything to that either made this harder or easier?
Yeah. There's all these stories, it's like family lore of my grandparents and great grandparents doing things so that the next generation or even 2 generations down would be set up and they would have more stability. less uncertainty. They have everything they need. And I realized in working with a coach that it wasn't so much about the temporary money success or struggles, but it was really about, am I going to ruin it? Basically, it's like, I remember saying this out loud. And I felt like if I'm not successful, if I can't make it, and then I'm ruining it for my whole like familial lineage.
Like your whole bloodline.
Yes. And I said that out loud. And then, yeah, my coach and I were like, at the same time, shit, that's a lot of
That is a lot to
put on
carry.
yourself. And then I realized in saying it out loud, I was like, wow, that's ridiculous on some level, but it makes sense that I like have internalized that somehow. I was putting a lot of stakes in whether my business can be successful, and more higher stakes than is warranted.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's, how our brain works, right? So that's what was going on at the time, not really sure how to sort of replicate things. Didn't really have a specific plan. And you were sort of holding your breath every month, right? To see if you got the clients or got the revenue. Let's fast forward to now, and then we'll play it back and sort of see how you got here. So fill us in now. I mean, what are some results you've seen from the work? I mean, like what's changed for the better?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest change is that whereas I was reaching my monthly revenue goal in that month, now I'm good through the end of the year, and I'm also booking into January.
So from where we are today, that's like 4 to 5 months ahead.
4 to 5 months ahead. Yeah, yeah. And on top of that, like if all of those things fall through, I built up like 3 to 4 months of savings also. So now I have like cushion. So
Oh
yeah,
my
so
God.
that's like the top line biggest. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
amazing. That
biggest.
is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we talk in the academy about the three different kinds of profitability. And the financial piece was like the most obvious symptom that I was dealing with. But really, what was going on also was the emotional piece because I was really stressed. I'll just share now, I have space now to spend my time in other ways that are really fulfilling to me. I just joined a board of a local nonprofit that I care a lot about, and that's linked to my professional profitability. And then also joined a grant making giving circle. And I'm on the grant make team thinking about who to fund. And so I have this space where I'm not only, making the money that I need to make to support the family and save, but I also have time to grow further professionally and also in fulfillment.
Oh, that's so amazing. And, just for everybody who's listening, we talk about the three types of profitability, which are financial, professional, and emotional, right? Financial being like making the money you want to make. Professional is doing the work you love with clients you enjoy. And then emotional profitability is having fun, having time for the people and things that matter, and feeling optimistic about the future. And I think, what I love about what you're saying here is those things are obviously all so connected. And depending on like where you are in your business and what needs work or whatever, some people are like, if I take care of the emotional profitability, then the financial will come, right? I mean, to some degree, you actually have to like put some things in place to make that happen. But it's like if emotional is most important. So like if I'm taking care of myself, then like the financial will sort of come, which is true. But what you're saying is also true, which is like, man, if I can take care of the financial and I do it in a way that's smart, right? And we'll talk about how you did that. But if I take care of the financial, that really does help like the emotional
Mm,
profitability,
for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So booked out 4 to 5 months with a few months of savings. And you have this emotional profitability where you can like participate in the things that matter. So the shifts that you've made and, how your business is now, I mean, when you think about like some of that money sort of scarcity, like how that was affecting you before, do you see any difference?
Oh, I mean, the success that I've had since starting the academy has given me more of my own buffer in my business. So we had savings, we had a good amount of savings with me and my husband, but the idea of dipping into that savings, which I did have to do a couple of times, felt like failing.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now that I've started my own savings account for my business, if I dip into it, it's just like, businesses sometimes have hard times. And it doesn't mean I'm like failing. So being able to separate that a little has helped.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, being in control of your sphere, right? Like, what is your sphere of influence versus having to like ask or sort of dip into somebody else's sphere of influence?
Yeah.
That's important. So we talked about how your business is different. And I'd also love to know, like, how do you think you're different?
I'm more confident as a business owner. So I get invited to like, oh, like Stephanie, I'm starting the solopreneurs like group. Do you want to join? And whenever like people wanted to label me as a business owner or solopreneur, I would really shy away. I'd be like, I started to even play around with the idea for a while. I was like, oh, I'm like a freelancer. And I'd be like, wait, what am I doing to myself? Like, I do own a business. There's a lot of work that goes into owning a business that is not the same as being a freelancer, and nothing wrong with that. But it was just that you can hear, like, I was really grappling with, do I deserve the title of business owner? And now I feel comfortable saying that I own a business because I feel like I'm operating at the level of a business owner now, like strategically and in terms of like business acumen and sales. So yeah, that's a really big thing I've gained. Hmm.
Yeah, that's a huge like identity shift and being
Hmm.
able to really
Yeah.
stand in that.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. Very good. Let's talk about how you got there. I mean, what are some things that you learned that were like the biggest game changers for you?
Yeah. It's not one small thing, but it really is the system and habits coming together. I guess if I had to boil it down to like a big aha or game changing moment, I think it's been the realization of how much business development I need to be doing regularly. And really importantly, because like having to do a lot of business development would not have been very exciting to me. But importantly, now I have figured out a way to do it that feels more second nature. So I'm not spending a lot of emotional capacity, like second guessing myself. It doesn't feel that hard anymore. And I figured out a way to do it in a way that I really enjoy and it feels like building relationships. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I need to have a lot more in my pipeline at the different stages than I think I realized before, which in hindsight makes so much more sense why I was, yeah, not securing enough work month to month. And now I'm further out. So yeah, I am constantly building new relationships now. I'm sending shoulder taps. I'm following up. I'm posting more regularly on LinkedIn and also building new relationships through LinkedIn, which I would have, yeah, scoffed at in the past. But I'm doing it in a way that like really is fulfilling. I'm meeting some really cool people on LinkedIn and finding good fits. And that's all leading to also just more spontaneous referrals too that are good fits.
Yeah. It's funny. As you're talking, I was, I'm making sort of notes so I can
Mhm.
ask you questions. And I wrote down how much biz dev slash, I remember you felt a little weird about it. So when you said like, yeah, because this was a big shift. I mean, I do remember that that was like a thing. And if we could talk about it here, because, a lot of women I talk to feel a little weird about biz dev or like doing marketing or whatever. So what did that look like for you, if you could share?
Yeah, for me, I was reaching out to people before, but I'm realizing looking back, it was like I'm not afraid to ask for help from my network. And when I was reaching out, it was often with less lead time. Like now I know it takes 6 to 18 months for B2B sales. And looking back, the orientation and the energy of my reach out was like, help me out. I'm like, it was
Mhm.
a little bit more like I never said I'm in trouble, but I can tell there's a little bit of maybe some desperate energy in there. And now, especially knowing that doing it further in advance, there's just really this authentic feeling of like it being more mutual. Like it's not help me out, but like, can I help you? And what's going on in your organization and your team and your leadership? And is there something a mutual exchange here that could be beneficial?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so there's more confidence, there's more ease. So I'm not drained in doing it, not second guessing myself as much. And then I'm just doing it at a higher volume, which is necessary.
Yeah. When you sort of saw what was necessary to do for business development, was that surprising? Like, what was your first reaction?
Yeah, it was really surprising. I remember doing the calculator and hearing that we needed 2 to 3 times our goal in our pipeline. And that seemed way higher than I had been thinking. But then it made sense given that a lot of my initial 2 or 3 years was just from my closest circle. And so people really knew me. My conversion rate was really high. But seeing that I needed to grow into other circles who were less familiar, it made a lot of sense. I'll say like all of those new habits and types of outreach felt really overwhelming at first. So at first, even though I understood, I could wrap my head around the amount of business development needed, I was like, I don't know that I want to be doing that. Like, I remember telling myself, I've committed to the academy, but maybe one of my learning questions this year is like, do I want to keep running a business like this where I need to do this amount of business development? Because it was really draining. But it just takes a while to build habits and to also make the strategies your own and find your own voice in those follow ups. And it's really become, like I said, second nature. I keep saying that. It's just, I remember for each of the modules, I would like calendar out work blocks and reminders for every single thing. But now I don't even have to plan it because I just do it without thinking now.
Yeah. When it becomes second nature, that's when you realize, like, I'm not learning how to do this anymore. I know how to do this. Brandy Zimmerman, who you know, because now she's a coach in the academy, she says, it became like paying my credit card bill, just like you just do it. It's not something extra you have to do. And it's interesting. I do hear a lot from women who start doing this that they're like, it feels like so much work, right? It feels like so much work. And the truth is, and I don't know how true this was for you, but like a lot of women have come to this point in their business by doing not a whole lot of business development at all. And so doing anything feels like more than what you were doing, which was almost zero. And so it is a change. It is a change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
I don't know how much that jives with your experience.
Yeah, it was a new skill. So it just was taking more time. For me, just I think with most people, when I talk to other women consultants, like there's just so much self-doubt in the process, or we put on all these stories onto, like, if we send a follow-up, it's like, what does it mean if they don't respond? Like it put on so much emotional like weight to it. So the combination of that felt like a lot of work, but yeah, it doesn't feel like work anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Was there anything else that you felt like made a big difference for you? Anything else that you learned?
I would also say, I think this came up in one of your podcasts, like keep your eyes on your own paper.
Yeah.
And I say that I've like added an asterisk. I say that to myself. But the longer version is there's a lot to learn from a lot of people. So I want to do that. But when it comes to evaluating my success and determining like what my business strategy is and where I'm going to spend time, keep my eyes on my own paper. Because another thing that was really draining me and stressing me out was I would see just little snippets, whether on LinkedIn or even, in the academy of like wins, other people's wins. And I was happy for them. And I would unfortunately just make it mean something about myself. Like, if someone got a 60K contract or whatnot. And then I would just make up all this big story about what it meant about their success. And I'd be like, what am I doing? I've never had a contract like that or blah, blah, blah. And then I just realized I had to stop. And one of the things that helped me stop that is all the connections I have built with other women consultants and just understand like all of our situations are different. Our goals are different. What success looks like is different. We have different amounts of debt, so just to keep my eyes on my own paper, be very clear about what success means for me, what my like basic income threshold needs to be, and then like what's extra and reflect against those.
I think that is so important and such a good practice. And you're right that, and we do say this in, even in the academy because we see it a lot. Like for some people, seeing other people win is very motivating for them. But for others, it's like demotivating, right? Or it could be a combination, sort of as you mentioned. And yeah, everybody is in a different, just a snapshot of a moment,
Mm-hmm.
It could be your day to get a huge contract. and then it could be somebody else's day to get a huge contract. It could also be your day to have a client tell you no that you were really excited about. And it could, then the day after, it could be somebody else's turn, right? And so everybody's business is different, and at a different point. And I think, eyes on your own paper, which is something that you say a lot, in that respect is just, I'm sure, just a way to like protect your own headspace, right? And sort of guard against what we call head trash coming in.
Yes, absolutely.
That's very smart. Good coaching from a coach. So, Stephanie, fill in the blank for me. I almost didn't work with you because, or I almost didn't join this because.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it was a financial investment, the most that I've made in my business to date. One of the first podcasts I listened to get a feel for, I was like, is this going to jive with me? Like, was the episode about fixing the roof when the sun's shining and not waiting for, the storm. And like I said, I had the best year yet. And I was holding my breath, but I had a little bit of room. So I was like, okay, this is the time. Like, what if I'm 6 more months into this and then like dipping into my savings? Like, then it's going to be harder to join. So like, this is the time to do it. Yeah.
That's great. Yes, I do that a million times. Fix the roof when the sun is shining. And it's hard to really have the forethought like you did about it's not going to always be like this. I think we sort of get lulled into this sense of like, maybe not now because things are very strange in, the world and business or whatever, but just look at right now and be like, things are fine now, but not, have the presence of mind to say, yeah, and I want them to be fine in the future as well.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it really was really nagging at me that I didn't know really what was working in a more systematic way. And it felt like luck. Like if I did do better, if I waited and I did do better, I didn't want it to feel like luck because then I wouldn't have solved the underlying issue. And I wanted the opportunity to keep running a business if I could.
Well, and you said, you didn't know what was working, and it's impossible to do more of what's working if you don't know what's working.
Yeah.
Right? It's like,
exactly.
Where do you go next?
Yeah.
So, Stephanie, what would you say to anyone else who's in the position that you were back then, had gotten here by what feels like luck and was looking month to month and wondering what was going to happen?
So, yeah, I feel like the key elements were like your month to month, your pipeline's kind of drying up. I would say to really invest a lot of time in building new relationships and starting to reach out and build those relationships so you have a longer runway. And yeah, the academy taught me all the little tactics of that, but like that's the headline that I learned, which is like, you really do need to invest in a relationship building strategy that has you having conversations with potential clients at a lot of different, I guess, stages in the pipeline, but really like on a different time frames. People are thinking maybe one day they could work with you, but there's not a specific opportunity right now. And then people who know maybe in the next 6 to 12 months. And people who need you in a shorter time frame to really make it sustainable and get out of that month-to-month cycle.
Yeah. No, that's great advice. I'm curious also, what would you tell yourself if you were to go back and tell yourself something?
Right now, I'm thinking about the message that I got. Like they just felt like good timing in terms of, fix the roof when the sun is shining. I think I would maybe just assure myself that I can do it. Back then I was really wondering, like, am I capable of running a business? Maybe I'm not cut out for this. And I think I would tell myself, like, well, no one taught you how to run a business. Like, give yourself a chance. You got this.
That's awesome. I love that advice. Stephanie, where can people find you?
Yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn, Stephanie Lowe, CPC. I think that's what I have on LinkedIn. And then my website is unlockpowerwithin.org. My business is called Power Within because, I work with so many different audiences and the engagements can look really different, but the root of my work is really helping people recognize and access the power that they have within to accomplish their goals.
Oh, that's fantastic. Stephanie, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. I really enjoyed it. Thanks, Leah.
I loved our conversation. And if anything Stephanie said really resonated with you, please reach out to her and let her know. And of course, please share this episode with a woman consultant who might benefit from hearing it. The only way this podcast grows is just by sharing it one by one. So please share it with a woman consultant in your world. So I always like to pull out a lesson that you can apply to your business. And I really want to focus on where a lot of women consultants find themselves to some degree, which is not really being able to see ahead in their business to how much money you're going to make or what your workload is going to be like. And so the lesson from this conversation is if you want to be able to see ahead in your business to know how much money you're going to make and not crossing your fingers for luck to happen, you need a system. I mean, you heard Stephanie talk about going from literally not knowing if she'd make her numbers until the last 2 weeks of every month to being booked several months out with a solid savings cushion. And that didn't happen by accident. It happened because she stopped hoping and started planning. And then she activated a system to help her get there. And I think this is important because when I talk to a lot of women consultants, like their revenue goal for a year, for example, is just like as much as I can, like as much as I can make. But that's not a goal. And if you don't have a goal, then you don't know how much it will take to get you to that goal. And to actually reach a goal when you're running a B2B consulting business, it takes more marketing and biz dev than you think. And that's a big shift for women consultants, especially if you've gotten all your clients through referrals. And making that shift starts with understanding what we call pipeline coverage. And pipeline coverage answers the question, how much do I actually need in my pipeline to make the money I want to make? And then we work backwards from there to start to understand how much marketing you need to do to surface those client opportunities in your pipeline. I mean, pipeline coverage is pretty simple math, but it's really powerful. So we're going to go through a quick exercise here. So we'll just use round numbers here for simplicity's sake. But let's just say your goal is you want to make in a year, you want to make $200,000. I mean, your goal might be more than that, whatever, just for simplicity's sake. So if you want to make $200,000 in a year, then that means that'll be roughly $100,000 over 6 months, and then $100,000 over the next 6 months. I mean, that's very simplified, but you sort of get the gist, right? $200K a year is roughly, making $100K twice. So if you look at your potential clients in your pipeline and the number of potential clients and the value of those potential projects, if that totals $100,000 in your pipeline, then unfortunately, you're probably not going to make $100,000 because inevitably projects get pushed or clients say no, or who knows these days, like your main client gets laid off or whatever, like any number of random twists and turns in the sales process, right? So if you want to make $100,000 and you only have the value of $100,000 in your pipeline, unfortunately, chances are you just probably aren't going to get there. So what pipeline coverage does is pipeline coverage says that you actually need to have between 2 and 3 times that amount in your client pipeline. So we take that, $100,000 in our example that we want to make in the next 6 months, and we multiply it by 2, and then we multiply it by 3. So our pipeline coverage on the lower end, is $200,000, which, remember, we took $100,000 and multiplied it by 2, right? So $200,000 on the lower end. And at the upper end, it's $300,000 because remember, we took that $100,000 and multiplied it by 3. So in your pipeline, you actually need the number of potential clients and the total value of those potential projects. You actually need to have between $200,000 and $300,000 in your pipeline. And again, your numbers will vary, right? But you can do that simple math, just, multiply your 6-month goal by 2 and then 3. And here's like the really important part of this. The amount of marketing you have to do to get 2 to 3 times your goal in your pipeline is a lot more than most people think. And it's a lot more than most people are doing right now. So if you're just, posting on LinkedIn every now and then, or sharing somebody else's article, or commenting on somebody else's post occasionally, or maybe reaching out to some people sometimes, you're not going to get there. It actually requires a marketing system to be really diligent and consistent in getting in front of your ideal clients with the right messages to bring the right clients to you and bring them into your pipeline. And then, of course, it takes a sales system to lead the sales process and help clients say yes and get paid more. So I want you to be really honest with yourself. First, do you have a number in mind for what you want to make? And then do you have a plan to reach that goal? Or are you doing what we call fingers crossed selling, just sort of hoping it works out? And then once you have that number, are you doing enough business development to actually generate the conversations and bring the clients in your pipeline that you need to reach your goals? Because when you work backwards from your goal and really understand what's required, how much pipeline you need, how many conversations that takes, how much marketing you need to do, you can build a plan. And when you have a plan, you're not guessing anymore. You're not holding your breath. And that's how you go from hope to certainty, from fragile to solid. And that's how your business starts to be something that truly supports your life or your family instead of just being something that makes some money. It's how you build a real business that supports your life. And that's what we're here to do. All right. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.